Welcome to MotoGP in 9 minutes. Here is what you need to know today. The audacity of critics judging Marquez in 2026 is absurd, and I need to say this directly. These armchair analysts crawled out to question the most accomplished champion this sport has ever produced, and they deserve every bit of pushback coming their way. Let me set the stage. Marquez crashed in the Jerez sprint, picked his bike up, cut across the grass into the pit lane, switched to wet tires, and still won the race. He fell down and beat everyone standing up. That is his second sprint win of the season, secured from the dirt. The FEM investigated the incident where he crossed the grass at pit entry and found nothing wrong. The regulation explicitly refers to the inside white line at pit entry, which Mark did not cross. No penalty was issued. The rules cleared him and the results crowned him, yet the critics still talked. Johan Žarko, a man finishing 8th, had the nerve to claim Marquez should not have won. That is who is lecturing a champion. The disrespect did not start at Jerez. It started the moment the season kicked off at Thailand. Marquez was running 4th on lap 21 when he ran wide at turn 4, running over the curb on the exit. The tire failed with clear wheel rim damage shown on TV. His own team boss, Audacity, could not believe it. He said hitting the edge of the apex broke the wheel, that he had never seen something like that before. Michelin confirmed rim damage was seen across the entire Buram weekend due to heat and aggressive curbs. Jorge Martin had the same issue in the sprint and was acquitted. Same curbs, same conditions, but only Marquez gets made into a cautionary tale. The wheel exploded. Not a tire, a rim made of metal. Tell me the last time any other rider on that grid had a metal rim catastrophically fail while hunting a podium and still got questioned about their ability. You cannot, because it did not happen to anyone else. Moving on to Brazil, now they want to say Ducati held him back. Marquez and Fabio Di Giannantonio spent much of the Brazilian MotoGP racing together. Mark came out on top with a sprint victory before Ducati passed him for the final podium place in the Grand Prix. A sprint win in Brazil. That is what this man produced while supposedly struggling, while supposedly broken and limited, unable to ride naturally. He won a sprint race against the entire field. Do you understand the mental fortitude that requires from a man 7 months out of shoulder surgery? He won, and still the conversation shifted to Ducati, holding him in the main race. The man won the sprint, and his critics found a way to make it a story about his limitations. Now here is what truly matters in my view. In the sprint at Kota, Marquez was handed a long lap penalty for causing a crash involving Ducati. He accepted it immediately, publicly, without excuses. He said that he did not know the penalty yet, but that he had to get some kind of penalty, because the rules are the rules. He admitted that today he made a mistake and ruined another rider's sprint race. That is called accountability. That is what an 8-time world champion looks like when he makes an error. No spin, no team politics, just I was wrong and I will take the punishment. After serving the long lap penalty, which dropped him from 7th to 11th, Marquez spent the closing laps in a battle for 5th with teammate Bagnaia and Bastianini. He won that fight, while Pecco faded all the way back to 10th. He served a penalty that dropped him to 11th at the fastest circuit on the calendar with a shoulder that everyone in the paddock says is compromised from shoulder surgery. He clawed back to 5th. Put any other rider in that situation and tell me they do what he did. They manage the situation and take points. Marc Marquez goes hunting. Now we arrive at the argument that should embarrass everyone who made it. The theory is that MotoGP has higher cornering speeds in 2026, and that this style is completely contrary to how Marquez wants to ride. Here is what actually happened at Jerez. Mark took pole position in wet conditions, winning a duel with Žarko by 0.140 seconds with the rest of the field over 1 second adrift. Over 1 second. In qualifying, the man who supposedly cannot adapt to 2026 cornering demands just obliterated the entire grid in wet conditions where bike balance and cornering precision are at their most unforgiving. In these conditions, you cannot hide anything. The bike shows everything. The rider shows everything. And he was 1 full second clear of everyone else. So which is it? Is the bike wrong for him? Or are you wrong about the bike? He was leading the Spanish Grand Prix before the crash at turn 11. A 200 km/h right-hander on cold tires, chasing his brother on lap 2. That is not a man who is broken. That is a man who refuses to finish second when first is available. From pole position that everyone said he could not take, in a race where everyone said he would collapse. This is your evidence of a declining champion. I think the evidence actually tells a completely different story than the one being written in the paddock. Next up, let us talk about what the critics are actually saying and why it matters. Marco Melandre says Marquez is at his physical limit. Jorge Lorenzo is concerned about Marquez's arm gestures on the grid. Pedro Acosta thinks it is clear that Mark is struggling to ride naturally due to the injury. Let us be honest about who is speaking here. These are riders commenting on a man who won the 2025 MotoGP World Championship, his 7th title, and then had shoulder surgery in October and returned to racing in February. That is the timeline. For months between surgery and racing a 300 km/h prototype in Thailand. For months, Acosta did not even deal with that level of physical adversity while winning anything. Melandre retired years ago, and Jorge Lorenzo, who himself retired early citing physical and emotional exhaustion, is reading Marquez's body language on the grid like a sports psychologist. In my view, this crosses a line. You cannot claim shoulder surgery has broken a man when he is setting pole positions and winning sprints in wet conditions. You cannot say he cannot corner when he comes back to 5th from 11th after serving a penalty at the fastest circuit on the calendar. The experts are lining up to declare him finished, but the results are telling a different story. This is not decline. This is an extraordinary ongoing battle. Here is what matters most. Marquez is competing for the championship with 2 DNFs, a long lap penalty, a sprint crash, and a shoulder that experts are trying to declare finished. And he is still in the championship conversation after 4 rounds. Switching gears to the actual standings and what they tell us. Marquez climbed above Diggia to 4th in the standings and moved 12 points closer to Bezzecchi after the Jerez sprint alone. The man is bleeding points from circumstances. A rim that exploded in Thailand. A penalty he accepted with dignity at Kota. A crash while leading his home race at Jerez. And he is still there, still hunting, still winning sprints, still taking poles. The championship has 18 rounds left, and Marc Marquez is still standing. He has faced the greatest physical nightmare in MotoGP history. Multiple surgeries, broken humerus, diplopia, years of irrelevance. He won the world title in 2025. He was knocked out of the Indonesian GP before his first title defense could begin. Had shoulder surgery weeks later. Came back 4 months after going under the knife. And now he is being buried by analysts with microphones and no scar tissue to show for any of it. Every time the sport throws a wall at him, he does not stop. He goes through it. He crashed in the first lap of the Jerez sprint and still won it. He took a long lap penalty at Kota and still finished 5th. He had a rim explode in Thailand and still came back in Brazil to win a sprint. The pattern is clear. Here is my final take on what is actually happening this season. We will not be entertaining cornering speed theories from people who have never lifted a 160-kilogram Ducati off wet tarmac at the final corner of a sprint race and ridden it to victory. The results are speaking. The only question is whether you have the decency to listen. Marc Marquez is competing on a bike everyone says is wrong for him, with a shoulder everyone says is broken, through circumstances that would end most careers, and he is still in the championship fight. He is still taking poles. He is still winning sprints. He is still driving through walls instead of around them. This is not a story of decline. This is the most extraordinary comeback battle in motorsport right now. For months from shoulder surgery to racing at the highest level. Multiple DNFs and penalties that should have buried him. And somehow he is still there. That is the story. Not the cornering speed theories. Not the arm gesture analysis.